we have lots of people throughout literature that are separate, although they're living in society. So then he moves you to his next subclaim, which is the need to belong. Now, in the need to belong, Mark Way uses Abraham Maslow. So first you had Socrates, now you have Abraham Maslow. Have any of you all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Christian?
I've heard of it. Is it like food, shelter, like community?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes, you're on the right path. Barrett, did you say that you had heard of it? What do you remember?
Starts down like the basic things, like for survival, and then it goes up to like self-actualization.
You are perfect. Yes, you guys got it. High fives. So, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have a triangle yet again, and down here is just all the basic needs like food, shelter, and all that. And as you go up the triangle, you get to self-actualization. The point that everybody wants to get to is the apex, the self-actualization. You cannot get to self-actualization if all these other needs are not taken care of. If you are not being fed, if you do not have clothing, if you do not have a place to stay, if you don't have community, if you don't have these things, you're never going to truly fulfill your purpose in life. You're never going to understand who you are, who your identity is. So now he brings in Abraham Maslow, and he talks about the basic desire to belong is a fundamental aspect of human nature. And he uses Maslow as evidence. Turn the page to page 8. And he says, prioritize just below our physiological needs, which have virtually no significance to Cal-El, whose cellular structures derive its nourishment from food, but from solar energy. So what he just did there is he addressed the naysayers. He's like, hey, I know that this entire triangle doesn't apply to Cal-El, but hold on with me for a minute. Stay with me and listen to what I have to say. And our need for safety, an instinct that's likely to be slightly foreign to a man who can survive a nuclear blast, he's still saying, hey, hold on, stay with me. And he says, it's fair to presume that despite his extraterrestrial origins, Cal-El feels the same basic need for community that is shared by all the human beings around him. If not, he most likely wouldn't bother being Clark Kent at all and would just as soon soar off to explore the greater solar system and galaxies beyond than work a 9 to 5 in Metropolis. So, he is supporting his subclaim with explication. He used a quote. Now he's explaining how that quote supports his argument. If you go down to the next paragraph, he brings in the next person, Mary Ann Williamson. Now, unlike Abraham Maslow, which is a psychologist and is based on science, Mary Ann Williamson is more of a religious person. The reason that he's doing this is because Superman is associated with the ultra-conservative right wing, yes? So in order to hold those people in his audience, he has to put something in his argument to maintain them as well. So this person talks about being a child of God, fulfilling what you're meant to do. We are all born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone, and we let our own light shine. And then after that quote, he says, how does Kal-El connect with the world around him? Not by turning his back on his alien heritage, though that was certainly his instinct while growing up in a small town. No, he ultimately connects by embracing that heritage, by creating as an adult a new identity for himself that is as Kryptonian as Clint Cart is human. So right here, he's saying, You know what? We Americans believe that all children should grow up, leave home, and figure out who they are. Superman's no different. He has to do the same thing. While he was living on the little farm, he really thought he should hide, but he left the farm, and now he's trying to embrace who he truly is. And in order to do that, he has to figure out how he is a member of a community. And he tells you the types of sunglasses that he uses, the types of glasses that he uses. And he talks about how everybody believes that he's the only Kryptonian on Earth, how he's living, where he's working, and then he brings back in Aristotle. So we return to philosophy, and now we introduce Aristotle. And with Aristotle always wanted to understand the roots of happiness. So he began to explore what it takes to live with excellence. So Aristotle wants to understand happiness. Abraham Maslow says that you can't receive happiness unless all these other basic needs are met. So Aristotle is further reinforcing Abraham Maslow. They're working in tangent with one another. He is finding sources that are saying the same thing. Well, in order for Superman to be happy and birthright, he has to have a job. And he has to have community. So let's make his ship that brought him to Earth be full of an ebook that provides him with his Kryptonian heritage. And let's provide him with a banner that is red and blue and has an alien glyph on it. So he is a member of the Kryptonian community. He's making himself a member of the human community. What he is doing here is he's using definition and example writing. Definition and example writing to support his argument. He talks about what the design actually means. That is defining it. He describes it. That's giving an example. And he talks about what the image means to him. And then he says, it's not Kal-El who named himself. It's Lois Lane who names him Superman. Look at the very bottom. A fellow reporter named Lois Lane decided that the symbol emblazoned on this hero's chest stood for Superman, and so the name stuck, as did the mission. Do you name yourself or do your parents name you? Or your parents, right? Now later on you can choose to name yourself, can't you? You can legally change your name. Well, what this is doing is this is giving a sort of acknowledgement that he's being accepted. By Lois Lane bestowing a name on him, he's now being accepted into the human society. So let's turn the page to page 10. He begins his last subclaim, and while he's beginning his last subclaim, he restates his thesis. The resultant paradox brought me up short. Superman has, since his creation, been a shining example to readers everywhere of the virtue of selfless heroism, but he has accomplished this by acting in his own self-interest. Yes, Superman aids those in peril because he senses a higher moral obligation, and yes, he does it because his natural instincts and his Midwestern upbringing drive him towards acts of morality. But along with that genuine altruism is a healthy amount of self-awareness and a surprising, evenable ability on his part to balance his own internal needs with the needs of others in a way that most benefits everyone. So, throughout this essay, he's comparing and contrasting how Superman must balance alien versus humanity, or being human. If we look at the very last sentence of that paragraph that we're on, Superman properly fulfills his own nature and his destiny, and the resultant is that many others are better off as well. So the paradox is he has to balance